If the Review Fits has been brought to you by Silverback Solutions LLC.
Hi everyone, my name is Kaeleigh.
Hey, my name is Stephen, and today we are going to be talking about our take from the principle of Jack Canfield's book, The Success Principles. We're going to be going over Principle 1.
The Success Principles was referred to us by my brother Evan Aubrey. He's the president of Golden Home Fitness. They're an amazing group of fitness trainers who are dedicated to helping others conquer their fitness challenges.
And as you may tell, this is our very first podcast. Go Team Silverback. We're pretty excited. A little about Evan is we have leadership meetings with him twice a week. And he's an individual that is always looking for self-discovery and self-growth. Thank you, Evan, for referring this to us. Hopefully we can get you on the air soon.
All right, so the first principle in the Success Principles is to take 100% responsibility for your life. And Jack goes on and states that people believe they are entitled to certain standards from simply just existing. You're blaming your parents, you're blaming the government, you're blaming the economy, you're blaming anything that does not have to do with yourself.
I don't know what you think, Kaeleigh, but personally, I've seen a lot of individuals like this in my life. I've seen people that are just waiting to get scooped up by a net, similar to Nemo, and to be brought somewhere else. And they don't take responsibility. They don't take accountability. They feel like it's on the government. They feel like it's on their family or on their parents. I've never been brought up that way. What about you?
No, I definitely haven't been brought up that way. You know, a big thing my mom was always keen on was making sure that we were accountable for ourselves. My brother, for example, always super accountable for himself, strictly believing in, what you reap is what you sow. And I honestly couldn't be more on the same page.
Yeah, individuals I saw that, they haven't been responsible for their life. They got exactly what you say. What they reap, they sowed. They're in the position they're in. I'm not saying our position is any much better or any worse. It's not for me to judge. But come on, guys. It's you got to take responsibility. At some point, it's time for you to break through and for you to, transcend your life. So as you can tell, I was pretty on point with Mr. Jack here.
Something that I think could relate to this on our side of things, we do own and operate our own business, Silverback Solutions. In the beginning,
Which brings us to this podcast.
which brings us here. In the beginning, it was, whoa, okay, I can work from home. I can make my own schedule. I can pretty much do whatever I want. And it came to a point where I was like blaming everyone else because things weren't getting done. But it's because I was being too lenient on myself with my schedule and like really taking a lot of time off than on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was like, jumping into Silverback, I kind of wanted to take control of my life. I had a few managers that, I thought very highly of, but, you can be a boss or you can be a leader. And luckily through my, growth and my development, I was taught how to be a leader. I fail short sometimes, I fall short, but I was taught well, and I appreciate those life lessons, and that's probably the big jumping point, without question.
For sure. Another point that kind of ties into that as well is it's called the real truth. And what it is basically only one person is responsible for the quality of the life that you live, and that's you. So, I mean, I guess, Steve, do you take 100% responsibility for your life?
Without question, yeah. It's pretty dynamic. I've been through the ringer, both in a good way, both in a bad way. Some would say some of it wasn't self-inflicted, good or bad, but this is all me. I fought through the trenches. I've made mistakes. I've made successes. And yeah, 100% accountability for my life. Kaeleigh, what about yourself? When's the time that you didn't take accountability for your life? A time that you might have blamed somebody?
Well, not too long ago, I was managing a Family Dollar out here. I didn't start off in that position. I started off lower down and ended up getting a promotion. And I was not very good at holding anyone accountable for, a lot of different things, and ultimately making it so I wasn't holding myself accountable. And a lot of really bad things happened, like one after the other, because, no one was being held to that standard. And unfortunately, my time there, I never really got a grasp on it. But now, being in a different line of work, owning my own business with you, I've been able
Poor
to.
Kaeleigh, man. This girl here. She got hired on salary, and I don't think anyone taught her what salary meant because, she was pushing 77 hours. She was trying to close every gap herself.
I did, and that's on me. Because I wasn't holding people responsible, I did have to work a lot more, and my life suffered for it. My personal life, and
I thought you took a lot from it too.
I did, but it's kind of one of those things. Did the bad outweigh the good? Did the good outweigh the bad? And
look at you now, looking like a rock star.
Here I am. So it wasn't. It was a lesson well learned. We'll just keep it with that.
And that goes into, his next point, which, I kind of liked a lot. You create everything that happens to you. Good, bad, the results, Kaeleigh, do you agree with this? Do you disagree with this?
No, I totally agree with it. I mean, like I said, there was a point where I wasn't, fully putting my all in with Silverback. And when I finally turned it around, I was able to see those results. I was able, to make different closes and start, really gaining ground.
What was the changing point for you?
For me, it was just a really hard transition going from where I was at to where I was coming into. So
'cause that was like a shot in the gut, wasn't it?
So the first, so the first like couple weeks, it was really hard for me to even like think about jumping into the swing of things. But time kind of went on, and we have a goal. I have one goal. We have one goal. We set it, and now it's just time to accomplish it. And we're already halfway further than where I ever thought we would be just yet. And so I think,
I like your
everything
I like your numbers
for
there.
a reason. Yeah.
Without question. Well, it was a big mix for you on the outside, not to go too much more into detail. I thought there was poor leadership. That's not on you. LOL, yeah, it is. Because you could have went and got leadership training. You could have spoke up. You could have talked to your employees differently. And those
could have, and that just comes, I'm still very young. I don't want to give myself excuses. That's not what I'm trying to do. There's a lot of things I just didn't know.
Yeah,
and
without
I feel
question.
like if I was in a better position where, I could have learned more from like a few different people, then I could have taken from different things and really like...
What I never understood was you've always been the type of person to just go sprint. You will go hit the ground and you will run, and you just need a little direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's what got you the promotion. I think that's what landed you the job. I was just so blown away about the lack of leadership there to help develop, an individual. And not just on her part, but, the boss's boss, the boss's boss's boss. They, in that role, they just have such a hard job across the board. And they do a fantastic job to, string it all together. Just as as an individual segment, it was a little interesting to watch.
Yes. Definitely an interesting time in my life.
And then, it goes into excuses. Jack shares, give up all excuses. So it's kind of funny that we're talking about that a little bit. You have the power to choose.
Yeah, definitely. And
for our mathematicians there.
Yeah, for our mathematicians out there, there's a really great formula that he speaks about in the book as well. And it's E plus R equals O, which is the event plus the response equals the outcome. and it becomes conditioned. So
I like the response becomes conditioned.
Yeah. So Steve, you're a little bit better with equations than I am. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, maybe consumer math. For those that didn't know, I almost did not get my degree because of a C in consumer math as a senior there. But hey, so my view on that is, it's spot on. I've never thought of it like that, but you are in control of your response. You can't control your events, and even though your response does weigh in the outcome a lot, you're not necessarily in control of the outcome. But you are in control of your response to the events, and you are in control of your response to the outcome. And, you can blame the E, you can blame the O, but you only control the R. And Jack continues, and he goes on, and he says, if E was the deciding factor, nobody would succeed. He said there would be no Barack Obama. He said there would be no Jackie Robinson. He said there would be no America. He said there would be no civilization. We need to do a mic check on that. But back to the piece. I found that very interesting. You can change the R until you get the O you want. And I think that's something in this environment that we have here. That's what we look to do. We're constantly problem solving. We're putting, the blocks on our shoulders. We run 3 different meetings a week that's dedicated,
just on our end, yeah.
Just on that in particular. We have a performance meeting, a product meeting, and a progress meeting. And those are each, that takes about 6 man-hours alone, plus our morning meetings that are just, 1 hour. Well, they're 30 minutes, but, 2 employees, that's an hour. And that's just for us to, put the ball back in our court and to check us and to, give some deep critical thinking. What do you think since we started doing that? Where are you at? Again, none of this is really scripted. We have a basic outline, but this is off the raw. So if she says anything crazy to me,
No, I feel good. I feel like, putting all of that into place and really, working out the kinks, everything's been flowing very smoothly. And I mean, as far as anything I could ask for, things have just been, to me, pretty great.
Without a question, I felt like we became measurable since we started doing that. We can measure things much differently, which was a huge perk because from the beginning, we were a closing business. We were providing really good service. We pride ourselves on our customer service and our products. But starting up a new business, it's crazy. Oh, man. It is crazy.
It's a lot in the beginning.
You talk about a whole can of worms. All the worms are there.
Nobody really tells you the can of worms you're opening. They don't tell you how many are in it.
Or
they say there's a worm in this can, and then all of a sudden you open it and 30 pop out.
Or it's selective hearing, right? Because they might have told us and we just didn't hear it. I don't know. Either way.
Either way.
It's a lot. But yeah, am I missing any variables, Kaeleigh?
No, I don't think so. I've had my own share of experiences with the equation itself. One of our services that we offer is photography, for example.
Okay. Talk more to us about that.
There came a point where, photography came into the picture and
she wanted nothing to do with it.
It wasn't something that I was really even looking forward to be honest. One day Steve came home and was like, hey, we're getting a camera. And I was like, what?
Well, to be back, it was like we had to outsource a lot of this. And it was hard for me to digest on an individual level because when we have to outsource, we can no longer control the product or more or less the consumer experience. Mm-hmm. And that's something we really pride ourselves on. And on top of that, the economics behind it, it just made sense to pull it all in-house. And back to Kaeleigh.
Yeah, so Steve came home with this camera and, my response at first was probably maybe I'll look at it. And then I touched it, and then I started playing with it. That's that. From there on out, this has been my camera, and photography is my thing. But,
many thousands of dollars later in the camera gear, I might have taken 5 photos.
But,
max.
The event of you getting the camera my response to it, it brought us to where we're at right now with photography. And
culture of the business as a whole, I thought.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Kind of created ownership.
Definitely.
Oh, we have a beautiful dog in there. She's saying hello. We'll do our best with her. But hey, this is our first podcast. And we're going to run with it.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm. So he continues, he says, you have control of 3 things in life. The thoughts you think, images you think, and the actions you take. I found that very interesting. Okay, what are some negative thoughts that you've encountered on a daily basis?
I mean, there's a spectrum of different things that I think about during the day. Sometimes you sit there and you're like, all right, no, I'm never going to be good enough. I'm not good enough at this. I shouldn't even be doing this. And then on the other end, with my little ones, I'm like,
she has 2 beautiful children.
I'm like, can I do this and, give them all the attention and the love they need? Or, is everything going to pan out the way that I think it's going to pan out? So a lot of different things run through my head during the day, and they are not necessarily all positive thoughts.
And how do those thoughts relate to your actions?
Sometimes really badly. Sometimes I get into these little ruts, and it's really hard for me to pull myself out of.
And how do you pull yourself out of them?
To be honest, a lot of that has to do with, you helping me and, sitting there, breathing, thinking about all the good things that are happening with the business, with everything that's going on in life right now. That really helps pull me back out of my little pit that I get stuck in sometimes.
Yeah, I go through that myself as well. It's different on the spectrum, but there's definitely a spectrum, to say the least. I get this kind of like this urge of this constant drive to push forward and, always progressing. And it can, be distracting. And 2, it puts a lot of pressure on us. It puts a lot of pressure on me. And it could be, a form of self-sabotage. Not on purpose, in consent. We're going to skip that. We're going to move forward. But yeah, you see, it's our very, we're out here doing it. But yeah, it's an interesting, and it starts painting these emotions, these pictures where these emotions where, it's like, oh, I'm going to fail, or, or we're going to get to this point. And then those relates to your actions, just like you were saying, where they become more impulsive, I feel like, and instead of calculated. And those are something constantly that we're both, as individuals, we're looking to tailor up, and we do tailor up. I think the big piece for us is challenging ourselves and, leading by example. One of the things I told Evan Aubrey is I would work on the So I think I've said it maybe 4 times in this podcast, max. We're not going to do it any more than that. This is going to be the last one.
Stay conscious, my friend.
We're going to stay conscious and stay calculated, right?
All right. So Jack continues on, and one of his very next points is you need to give up all complaining. And
he was talking about that before a little bit, but to go in more detail.
People are complaining about things, and they have like reference points about which one could be better, and then they don't take action. So it's like, that house over there is so much better than mine. The grass is so much greener over there, type of thing. And then they just don't do anything about trying to make it better.
And then I find from his readings, he was saying that things that aren't complainable, people don't complain about, such as gravity.
Yeah.
And they actually, they use it to their advantage. For example, sports. A lot of the major sports, uses gravity. And you don't hear about a lot of individuals talking about or complaining about gravity. I mean, in my life, I'm not much of a complainer. I might, I'm hostile. What do you think, Kaeleigh? Tell me a little about myself. Go hot on the mic right now. Remember, my grandma might be listening. My great-grandma. Shout out, Mama Lois. We love you.
You don't complain a lot. There are times, obviously, we're all human, where you complain, but...
Oh, do me justice.
You definitely are more hostile than anything else.
Sometimes we just need to get it done, and you got to put on your big boy pants and You can't be conscientious of everything. You should be, but it's something
like
I'm growing
you're only
on.
human.
You're only human. I love it. And I will definitely take that. So, my personal favorite is successful individuals do not wait or blame. They learn to replace complaining with making requests and taking action. Do something to change it or get out. I find this doesn't work in my life. I just find that this is just not the case. Excuse me. I was working one time at a phone retailer, and I took all of my skills and I applied them. I was at a point in my life where I was ready to go get at it, and I was so hungry, and I love the staff, and I'm shouting out, giving love. If they're listening, they know who they are. But man, did I get out. And I got out so quick on accident, and I wanted to stay. I wanted to be there a long time. I really liked the person that ran it. I liked the assistant manager. I liked the owner. I knew I wasn't going to be there long term. I had about a year to, a 12-month, I think that's time, number 5 I said,
Yeah.
All right, so it was a 12-month to 16-month plan. And it deteriorated pretty quickly, unfortunately. And I think it was implementing some of this. I don't really complain, but I do take action. And I think that action, from what I learned, can be portrayed in different ways. And you got to be very conscious of how you present yourself to your team, because not everyone is really on the same page or thinking your thoughts. And something that might be genuine on your end might be conning on theirs. They might think you're trying to pull one over on them. Yeah, Trust is such a hard thing to establish.
It is, and I agree with that 100%. Going back to my time as manager over there, I had a lot of issues, with the blame game. I'm just as guilty. And it really just caused a very uncomfortable environment. And that's just something that if you're trying to be successful, you're not going to do it in an environment where you're uncomfortable or there's any kind of hostility, or you're over there blaming somebody or complaining to somebody, and it just kind of all blows up into this little volcano, and then poof, it explodes.
Is that how volcanoes go? They go poof?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know. I've never seen one in real life.
Oh man, that is so funny. Yeah, I always thought it was difficult for you there to manage. I don't know how I would have did it. I always shared with you my thoughts, but when I actually put myself in your shoes, I think wage has a lot to do with it. And not to speak about anybody's wage or discredit anyone, but I think how the structure of a corporate environment is really tough for leadership to lead, because they're constricted by a lot of their systems. One, whether it's managers, how they have to operate under them, and I mean above managers operating with the below managers, or it's actually the systems in place. I found the biggest issue that someone in your position would run into was the pay scale. And it's hard. It's really hard to really, to empower someone that is only there for, a couple bucks, and they can easily get another job.
Yeah, no, being on salary is, it sounds great in the beginning. It's like, whoa, huge pay raise. But then, with all this new responsibility, you're expected to do so much more than what you're told you're supposed to be doing. And I fell into that trap, unfortunately.
And I felt like...
And it had, a lot to do with, my maturity. I wasn't really all there. I wasn't, fully ready to take on, a role like that. But when it was all said and done, even if I did it in the most horrible way possible, I gave my best effort. And I always did everything I could to try to make everything keep going. But at the expense of,
yourself,
tearing myself down.
That goes with boundaries with yourself, too. That's a big piece.
Boundaries is something I'm still learning, so.
I think that might be a later principle. I'm not positive.
Maybe. But so the next talking point
And the last
and
one.
the last talking point that we're going to get to is no one else can do it for you. You're going from victim to victory, and you need to be an Olympian of life.
So he's talking about a mindset there.
Yes, a strong mindset.
And do you think that's applicable to everybody?
Can I say yes and no?
Yeah, you can say what you want. You're on the mic.
So yes and no. You know, you're going to have your people who will take that. They'll run with it. It'll apply to them. Then you have the people you know that could totally change everything for them. And as long as they just applied it, but they won't do it.
So does that go into one of the previous points that, no excuses?
I would say
or
so.
the main piece of this is
It's
to take
just taking
100%
responsibility
for yourself and for your outcome
Being
and your
accountable.
choices. Yeah, I've always found, I want to be an Olympian of life. We refer to ourselves as, students of life, learners of life. Titans. So we use this phrase at home, Titans, because sometimes Titans clash. And when Titans clash, something beautiful comes from
always
it.
comes out.
But that goes with, taking the responsibility, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I had to get the assumptive yes there.
Well, we wanted to thank you all for joining us. And for next podcast that we're going to have, we're going to be sharing our take on principles number 2 and 3. Number 2 being be clear why you're here. And principle number 3 being decide what you want. And again, my name is Kaeleigh.
My name is Stephen. That's all we have for you today. We'll catch you next time. Y'all.